Hi guys. Uh, I just thought actually, if I'm doing the same thing, I could tag this onto the end short video. So you don't know anything about the short video because it's now the long video. From the past to the future to the present, live from the future. Um. Oh, so I'm really looking at this girl, and the problem is there's no way you can apply this angle of pressure to get these legs to go back in. So I'm going to fill that with epoxy resin, and just there's a few little cracks and things. Epoxy resin is evil stuff. And it comes in these little pots like this. There's A and B, a hardener and a mixer. And so it has the same effect as the polymer clay, but it doesn't need to go in the oven, so it hardens with time when the chemicals react. So it means you can fix things after they've come out of the oven, which is fantastic. But people say you should always wear the gloves to do it with, but it's so hard to sculpt it with gloves, and then the gloves getting stuck to it, and I don't know, but so I would say don't try this at home. But I just have to clean my hands really a lot after I've finished with it, because one time I had been doing this, and then I scrubbed my hands twice. I think I washed my hands twice, and then I went and had a cigarette, and I could feel this sort of tingling sensation in my hands. I was having a cigarette, then I felt this tingling in my mouth, and I'm like, I got epoxy resin in my mouth. So, on the whole chemicals front, I think I need a lot less chemicals in my life. And that's something I want to work towards, because at the moment it is polymer, and I don't really like the idea of the whole plastics and chemicals. And I've been in an art room teaching students for 15 years, so I've kind of breathed in my share of toxic chemicals. And so once I get myself established and we're in Vietnam, I can be more experimental with what we put into the mold, and maybe there is some kind of tree resin or something more natural, just because that is because it's the philosophy that is the fairies are part of the planet we're trying to save. But like I said, if it does, people say you can't have plastic because it lasts 300 years, but if someone dug up a fairy in 300 years, that would be awesome. It's good, and it's never going to break down to microplastic because it's got too many coats of varnish and paint on it, I think. Anyway, I do want to limit the chemicals in my life. So when you do this, you've got to obviously make two balls which are the same size, and then mix them together and use gloves. But you want to be really know what you're going to use it for, because it says you have 3 hours to sculpt it, but you don't at all. You've got about 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes it's already going too hard to do anything with. So you've got to plan what you're going to actually do. I watched a YouTube video on how to make nice balls of clay. And even though I've been making balls of clay all my life, because even though I've never been a sculptor as such, so teaching art in high school, you do a lot of clay. Anyway, I looked on the internet not that long ago, is there a really good technique for making balls of clay? And it's a 1-minute video, which is usually about as much as I watch on video and on YouTube, and then work out the rest for myself. And the lady goes, basically you just get it here in that part of your hand, and then you just roll it around with your fingers until you get really good at it. And then you can get a perfect ball. That's such good advice. Just do it until you get really good at it. There's no secret to making balls of clay. The trick is to make them the same size, though. That's something you kind of get better at, I guess. And also, if you have to make two of anything, like you have to make 2 ears or 2 eyes or 2, anything 2. It's always good to make one ball and then cut it in half, because then you know you've got exactly 2 halves of the same amount. But I think, like say, don't try to do too many jobs with one piece. And so those are, you can go up. Oh yeah, you can go down. So we've got 2 balls exactly the same size. Then I know I've got to be ready, so it's ready to go in there. But I really just want to get it in there. And because it's refusing to go back into its original shape, I think that's because there's a tension between the clay and the armature, the wire armature inside. So actually, by filling the gaps rather than trying to force it back together, it's actually it's in the shape it wants to be in. It's more relaxed, and there's no conflict between the wire and the clay. And that is the difference between the polymer clay, the Sculpey, the original, and the epoxy resin mold, is that the polymer clay does have a tendency to expand and contract in extreme variance of temperature. So you've got to be quick on this. And just mix it all together. So that's A and B going together. I think this is the point where it turns into something that you shouldn't play with without gloves on. But I've got a special toothbrush that I use just for doing this, and so I put the washing up liquid on the toothbrush and really get into the cracks, into your thumbs actually, because sometimes it hides inside the skin of your thumb. So you need to give it a darn good scrub. But like I say, don't try this at home anyway. It says on YouTube that these videos made for kids. It's like, as long as they don't try to do what I'm doing, that's fine. So they're not burning cars or playing with epoxy resin. Not made for kids. And I want to get that as much into that gap as possible. So make it into the shape of a kind of wedge. So I can force it right in. But it doesn't matter if it comes out a bit, because I can just sand that off. Because I want to sand off the paint and do all the paint again as well. I thought whilst it's in this position and it's locked in this position, because that didn't work, I couldn't pull it tight enough. But it has worked in a sense, because the bottom glued but the top didn't. But this stuff's really expensive as well. It's like 1,000 NT, so about $30 for 2 ounce things. You get 4 ounces. So it's good when dangerous things cost lots of money, because then you use them less. So in a sense, I'm just going to pretty much leave that like that. And I've got a little smudge of it there, so I'm going to smudge that into that crack on her wrist. And then deal with the other part, because that's the most important part. So you see that's going to go slide into there, and then just force it down from the same angle. And this is dry as epoxy. They say it dries as hard as stone, but Also, the other thing is because I was just trying to glue it, I think it would have gone in better. And then I got that little bit left over. Smudge it into there. Smudge it into that gap. And then, yeah, like I say, you don't want to waste it, so any you can kind of scrape up from what you've done, which isn't actually... Oh no, that wasn't being used. Get it back in there. You can kind of patch up some of these. You can already start to feel it starting to kind of harden. Any extra support on those wings is probably always going to be a good thing. But then I'll fiddle about, that's like a separate job, the ear and the finger, because that involves more modelling. Anyway, that's a longer video than a real video, so I give up. I don't make nice videos if I kind of rush them, because I found a couple of videos ago I rushed it a bit, and again that's not my philosophy. And if you're sitting there watching a 16-minute video, that's your business, not mine. But I do need to go now, wash my hands, and she's going to be a happy girl once again. So that's it from me. This is now longer than a long video. Maybe it's a short video and a long video. I don't know. Maybe it's live. Maybe it's live from the future. Anyway, love you and leave you. And do wash your hands. Wash your hands. If you use epoxy resin a lot, wash your hands. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.